Julie Binter, welcome back to the Made Leader podcast. I am so glad to have you on today.
Thanks, Jen. It's always great to see you. Thanks for having me back.
Regardless of your stage of leadership, managing up is something that is really important. I talk to a lot of early leaders, and this isn't even on their radar, right? Because they're usually identified because they're doing some good work. And so people see them and say, oh, they're doing really well. They get into their new leadership role, and there's just like this whole other ball game that
Mm,
we're talking about. And so I'm going to kick it over to you in just a minute, but I think one of the most important considerations for leaders is to potentially reframe what managing up means.
mm,
So, back in my early days of leadership, I really didn't think managing up was a thing. Like, I just did my work, did a good job. And as you go to your first level of leadership and more and more and more, managing up is vital. And I think there's this reframe that needs to be had from, ugh, it's something that politics, oh, I don't want to do it, to, oh, it's actually something that's going to help your career. It's going to help the company. It's going to help everyone. Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
of course, if we're talking about selfish interest, it's going to help you. So reframing it to say, how can managing up help you be successful in your role? What do
absolutely.
you think?
I love that. Yeah, I absolutely love it. It is not a nice to have. It is definitely a necessity. It is, I don't know that I really understood it or learned about it until probably halfway through my career. And I was fortunate enough later to start teaching it as a skill set to individual contributors and leaders because what we find is a lot of the conflicts or a lot of the tough relationships that we have with our leaders or with the people on our team, it's because we don't necessarily understand who they are, where they're coming from, what their needs are. We get locked down into who am I? What do I need? Where am I coming from? And, like I said about the whole people stuff, it's we can't get our work done by ourselves. And so I agree with you. Looking at it negatively, thinking it about only as politics is definitely one way to see it, but to also see it as a skill set and you can actually have way more influence even without authority when you put some time and energy into figuring out the elements that work for each leader because it's not the same for every single
Mhm.
person. So,
No. And one thing that trips me up, and we'll get into some tips in just a minute, but this just made me think of I always have had good relationships. I know how to talk to people. I know how to talk to higher ups. And I always thought I was good at it because I could present myself well, I could ask the right questions, but it didn't really manage up well because it was all about me. It was
mhm.
about me and how I was showing up. Even my last leadership role, I created something that I thought was really badass, right? Like I created this whole part of our team that could bring in revenue now. It was completely self-serving. The company didn't care. That was like a drop in the bucket compared to what the company was making. But I didn't realize it until after I left. I was like, oh yeah, that was kind of something that I'd like to do. So I manage up in an aspect very well, but the
Mm.
piece about the other person, maybe not so
Yeah.
much.
And that's for you and the leader above you. But sometimes, as a leader of people below us or on our team, we forget that you can help them manage up too by teaching them about the elements. So, the stuff you're going to pay attention to with your own leader are the things that you can talk with your own team about and let them know this is what it means to manage up. Here are the things that you'll want to know about me to be effective or to get work done. And it's interesting because I think in a workshop a long time ago, somebody was like, oh, well, I can't make people manage up. I said, no, you can't. However, you can teach them the skills or you can teach them the elements that are going to help them do it better. So they're happy, you're happy. Maybe they'll stay longer. And maybe you'll stay longer if you're managing up well and not feeling like everything's a roadblock or everything is a struggle. I think that's what
Right.
managing up for me has done, is makes me feel like I'm able to move the train or the whatever forward once I take inventory on the things that matter,
Hmm.
to help me have that influence. So,
Yeah. So one component that we're both talking about for managing up is ultimately it can be self-serving, but that's not what it's about, right? It's about learning about the other person,
mhm.
right? What's important to them, what are their challenges, what's helpful, how can you help them succeed, right? So it's really about the other person. It's not about you. W- What and tell me if you don't agree with that, but then what else? What are some other components that people can start thinking of when I think of managing up?
I would add on to what you just said and say it's actually both. So managing up is two-way process, always. So if you are self-aware and you know all of those answers for yourself, then fabulous. Then go learn those things about the person that you're trying to manage up to, or share that with the people that are on your team that you want to have manage up. Part of the self-awareness, though, is understanding you may not like what you know or learn about the other person. So if you're, let's say, like your style, right? We've talked about DISC, we've talked about our
Mhm.
communication style. Let's say our communication style is completely different. Okay, most likely we're not going to change that. However, we can flex, we can adapt, I have to, when I take it upon myself to manage up with you, I have to take it upon myself to learn about yours and then also say, what are some of the, how is this going to frustrate me? How might this get in the way of how I am? And where do we need to have conversations just about our styles so that we can either eliminate the potential conflicts, or when they come up, it's going to be easier to deal with them. And so when I hear you say it's one-sided, it is and it isn't, because hopefully you saying it's just about the other person means you've already known about that for yourself. But if not, or if you haven't quite, because let's be honest, every boss we've ever had has something or things that frustrate us.
Yeah.
And we just wish they would change. We just wish they would do that better. Right? I mean,
Mhm.
gosh, we can think of all of our bosses and say that.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, there is that level of self awareness from our style that says, can I accept that that is not going to change? How else can we manage that? That to me is managing up. It's, I
Ah,
can't fix my leader. I can't make them be who I want them to be. So, what do I have to do with them or without them to live in their world? Because at the end of the day, they have a say over my work and they have a say over my progression in an organization. They will support me or not, right? So that's the selfish side.
I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? I mean, so you may think your boss is incompetent. You may think, "Oh, I don't like how they work. I don't agree with it," right? Well, and you still
Exactly.
have, this it's still your reputation that
Yep.
you are going out there with, and they can choose to endorse it, or you can keep fighting it and saying, I wish they'd be a different way, and then that's just going to burn you in the end. So even if you're managing up to your boss, you're managing up to your boss's peers, right, or around them, right,
Yep.
regardless, is
Yep.
that you are going to find a bunch of different styles, and some of them you may agree with, some of you may not. So I love that you mentioned that. um, and I've had to flip it for myself and say, where are their strengths? So
Yep.
when
Yep.
we've talked about this before, like I said, when you're seeing someone, your boss doesn't have the same style as you, it annoys you. Okay, well, what do they do really well? Right.
Yep.
So maybe they cannot be good at everything. Maybe that's why they hired you. Maybe you're the one who
Exactly.
fills in the blanks.
Exactly.
So I think it is just I think there's this piece of managing up is just to be an observer
Yep.
and start taking notice of, what's your boss interested in?
Yep.
You know, who do they compliment? Who gets the resources on the team,
Yep.
right? Does your peer get all the resources? Well, watch that dynamic, right? Or if I heard this on the leadership team once that the CEO is always like complimenting this one person all the time, right? Not great practice, but it is an observable behavior. Okay, what
Yeah.
does he keep talking um, about this person? Right? What are the compliments he's giving? Well, that's what he's likely to reward. It was a he in this case. I'm not using that in general. What is he likely to reward? Okay, well, that's what he is. That's what's important to him, right? So pay attention. And like you said, you can agree with it or not, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And I think this is where I know a lot of us have a love of taking all the assessments, right? And a lot of leaders are like, I'm going to take it with my team, or I'm going to take it with, I'm going to have all my team take it. That's one thing I always recommend to people about managing up is what types of assessments has everybody already taken? Could you look at that data and make any determinations or learn anything that could help you? Because as you were talking, I'm thinking about a couple of leaders are popping in my head that I found difficult to work for because it never felt like we were on the same page.
Mhm.
And it was a struggle. I didn't look forward to our meetings. I never felt like I could move the needle. And when I stepped back and started understanding, do they like really a lot of detail, really detailed messages? Do they like detailed conversations? Do they like short and sweet messages? Do they only read the first 2 lines of my email? What's the data telling me? So if I know, like, again, and I'll go back to the DISC, it could also go to an emotional intelligence assessment. If I've learned through these assessments that this person is kind of leaning in that direction, that tends to be a tendency for them, I would go to say, hey, so when we do our meetings, what do you want to know first? When I send you a message, what are you going to pay most attention to? Or when you think about the pressures on you from your leaders, what do you care about the most about what we're doing? Because I think that's what I learned in time is I would give this one leader so much detail and they didn't want any of it. I would like give them all this information and I would show up for a meeting and they would ask me like 2 questions and we would be done. And I'm like, but look at all this amazing information and stuff. And they would say, I don't care. I just need to know, is it done? Did it go well? What can I communicate? And once I learned that, I then did that work with my team. I did that work with others, or I
Mhm.
did it for myself. But I knew when I went to go work with that person that they wanted it short and sweet. They had certain answers. And so I learned over time, like, oh, before I even get started on this, I actually would start asking, like, what are the questions that you want to have answered by the time this is done? Or what is
Great one.
what is the information that you need or want when this is all done after we're done working on it? And then that would be the foundation, or that would be the place, the starting place, instead of the revision place
Yeah.
later.
I love that you
So
said that because that's how I work with clients now. Is how I've always worked with clients, whether I was in a company, I've always been client facing. Hey, I've got a ton of stuff prepared for you today, but what's important for you to get done? What do you want to know today? Do you want to kick us off? What are your burning
yeah.
questions?
Yep.
I'm prepared. Don't worry.
Yep.
But I have had people like my dad was setting us up with a financial planner, it's his financial planner. And he's like, oh, well, okay, kids, tell them about yourself. And then the guy's like, well, hold on, let me tell you about me. I was like, well, okay. And then he proceeded to talk for a really long time about himself. And I was like, oh, good God. But that's not what you want to do, right? You want to figure out what's important to them. So I love that you said, and I think there's the piece of it you can observe, right?
Yep.
Just observe,
Yep.
be curious, but just what you said is ask,
Yes.
what is important to you? What should I know about working for you? What you just said is like, what keeps me up at night? What are the pressures
Yep.
on you from your boss?
Yep. Because
Because
you
how
may not
many
know them. You may not know what they are.
no, you don't know because they probably don't talk about it, right?
No.
Um, and so to ask them that clearly, and I, as a leader, would really appreciate someone coming to me and go, "Hey, what's important to you? What pressures are on you?" Because that helps you focus your team, right?
Mhm.
So if your boss is concerned about X, Y, and Z, and you're working on A, B, and C, go, I need to. figure out how I can become a little bit more important and my team be a little bit more valuable
Right.
to what they're focused on. And who doesn't appreciate what you just said, saying, how do you want to receive information? What's important
Yep.
to you? What do you want to get out of
Yeah.
this? So
Yeah,
asking.
absolutely. And we haven't talked about this yet, but the level of courage that you need to be able to ask those questions, but then
Mhm,
also because it's not one-sided and you're not just at their beck and call, you are also your own person and you have a team with you. So having the courage to say, great, I'm so glad those are the things. I'm glad I know that now. Here are some of the things that matter to us. Here are some of the things that we're paying attention to in the event that you ever needed that or that ever became a priority, right? Because it's still important to be able to share general points or general
mhm,
information so you don't get reduced to you're just showing up and giving a 3 bullet answer. It's
mhm,
important to manage up to let them know that there are other things going on. I think what it does, and again, this is that same leader I'm thinking about, is what do you do all day? Why is it taking so long for you to get this all done?
mhm,
Well, I'm not going to go into the detail, but here are all the aspects of the work that we're doing to get to the answers that you need. Here are all the pieces, here are all the parts, here are all the timelines to get us there. So that is what's taking our time. And then that's a different
mhm.
conversation. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that you brought that up because what I was talking about was just like going, all right, cool, that's important. How can we figure out how to connect the two? But I love what you said about, hey, our team's working on this. You probably have no line of sight to this, but this could, really get us in trouble here, right? So, hey, just want you to know we've got this handled. You don't need to worry about it, but customers are saying this. So I like that you brought that up because it is that piece of not bogging them down into details, but going, okay, well, they've got their eye here. Just know we've got our eye on the ball here,
Yep. Yep.
right? So we're taking
Absolutely.
care of this. So that we don't even want that to be a worry for you or whatever that is.
Yeah. And asking that question too, are there other people in your leadership team? Is there anything else that the organization cares about that you don't have information about that we could be providing or doing? But I did want to come back to something you said
Mhm,
earlier that really is kind of stuck in the back of my mind is the strengths piece. And I think, again, if you are not completely aligned with somebody as a leader, you will focus on the stuff that isn't going well. You will focus on the stuff that you wish you could change. And I love what you said about what are their strengths as well. They probably hired you for a reason, not just to fill the position, but also because you bring something. This is the fully evolved leader, right? You bring something to the table that that leader doesn't have. As much as you hire people on your team bringing things that you don't have or that you're not able to do yourself. And so
mhm,
that exploration and knowledge about the strengths and be able to show, okay, you're really strong here and I am too. We can talk about that all day. Or you're really strong here, I'm not. Teach me. Show me some
mhm,
more about that. Or I've noticed this is a part you don't really like. I actually like that. Or I can do that well. Or I have a lot of background in that. How could I help you? Because again, right? You're helping them get stronger, helping them look better, you're helping them be successful. Their success is going to impact your success, and your team's success is going to impact your success. So it's really seeing the layers there and
mhm.
understanding that trying to get along takes more than just adapting and flexing. It's also celebrating what's already there, and what you
Mhm.
can really use and benefit from.
Yeah, I loved when people could do the things I didn't want to do. That was such a that was such a when they say, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to go work on this contract," I'd be like, "Oh, thank God, because I
I
hate it."
love that.
Right? And then
Yeah.
that like, we're very different in our skills, but that made me appreciate them, that they would step up, take it off my plate. Like, that is a beautiful thing to say, "Hey, can I learn from you?" What you just said,
Yeah.
but also, "Hey, I'm pretty good at this. Like, how can I
Yes.
take that off your plate and go ahead and do that?" And I think it is so hard to focus on the strengths when you feel like, "Ugh, my boss just doesn't get it or doesn't know." Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that can be tough. So I like focusing on that because you really have to put down your emotions and you have to just kind of all right, let me just observe from third party perspective,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
You know?
We'll call it check our emotions and manage our emotions, because we're still going
Yes.
to have all those things. Like, again, I'm sitting here thinking about this former leader, and it brings up the angst of it's still, after all these years, I still am like, oh, it was a challenge to work with
Mhm.
them. But once I got to that place where I'm like, okay, I know it's a challenge. What's my, I think we've talked about this before. What's my circle of influence? What is under
Yeah.
my control? What could I do with it? Knowing that, and again, I will always remind people, we're talking about work right now, but we're all in organizations with our families, and we have people in our life that we can't fire or get rid
Right.
of or put aside. And guess what?
Mhm.
We do the exact same thing with the people in our personal lives as well. And I think sometimes I have challenged leaders who are struggling with managing up to say, how do you manage this in your marriage, with your kids, with your
Mhm.
siblings, with your parents? Do you have anybody in your family that you constantly conflict with? How do you manage that? Oh, well, I just don't bring that up, or I do this, or I do that, or that, oh, or I have somebody else that I talk to that about. And something you had said earlier makes me think about, oh, great, you kind of understand who your leader is and what they can bring. And if you're still not getting something, you still have to fill that need, and that's going to keep you stuck.
Mhm.
So my suggestion and my own experience has been, where else could I get that from if it's not going to come from my leader? Because I think we expect so much from our leaders to be this
We do.
perfect, yeah, fully complete, fully evolved person that's going to save us, save the day, do all the right things. And we know from experience and from being leaders that's not possible. So it's also maybe widening your scope with managing up and saying, awesome, this is what I can accomplish and do and have with this person, but I still have other needs that I need. And I need
Mhm.
to maybe manage up with someone else and get that need met elsewhere. And yeah, this conversation is very fun because it's bringing up all these other things that
Yeah.
we don't want to put so much pressure on our direct leader. And there are other ways to get the needs met. And there's other leaders that might want to
Mhm.
fill that role and want to mentor or want to support you.
Yeah, yeah, it's managing your own career, right? So instead
Yep.
of saying, "Oh, poor me, my boss sucks," um, I am gonna sit here and complain about it. Okay, well, who else could help me? Who else in
Yeah.
this organization can I learn from, right? Because there's plenty of people that they
Yeah.
could, depending how big the organization is, you can learn from anyone, right? So,
Yeah.
not go around, but yeah, go network, right, within the organization. But something you said earlier, I want to go back to because I've seen this happen, play out in real life, is that if you have the courage to have these conversations with your
Mm,
higher up, uh, when you glean that information from them, so when you're asking these questions and you're getting this information, those are like nuggets, gold nuggets to take back to your team to say, hey,
absolutely.
I want to give you the heads up on this. So when I was working with a leadership team, like through the leadership conversations, we finally got to what is important to this leader. Like she had never said it, and then all of a sudden it came out, and I was like, "Well, damn, that makes it a lot easier when we know we're going for this and this." And then they brought it back to the team, and they're like, "Oh, like hello, right?" So if you can learn information, that is going to be so helpful for your team to say, hey,
Yes,
here are the important things. Here's what we need just to keep on our radar. And we may have already said this, but I just want to put a fine point on how important that is to bring that information back to your team. Don't leave it with you, but to
absolutely.
share it.
Yeah, because now what you're doing is you're planting the seeds to help them manage up to you. So if you might forget that, or that might be something that happens along the way and you express frustration about something not happening. Hey, remember we talked about these are the important things. Oh, right. And these are the important things I know are for you, right? Because
Mhm.
you've shared those with me. And yeah, and as you're figuring out how to manage up with your own leader and you're learning things, this is where that piece of paying it forward to your team is so vital. And you can tell them. I encourage leaders to be transparent all day, every day when they're doing things with their team, and say, you know what? I've learned in my career that managing up is a really important skill. you can't learn everything about me and how to manage up with me in one day. But as we go, we're gonna have conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be things I share as we encounter conflicts, or we come up against challenges or successes. We're gonna kind of step back and talk about, wow, this really matches this desire in me. This is one of my drivers, right? If we can make this happen more often, I would be happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, wow, it looks like we have a different way of seeing the situation. Let's talk about what we're bringing. This is the way I see it. This is my style.
Mm-hmm.
What's yours? Right? So
Yeah.
you're always engaging people in that getting to know you conversation, but letting them know that that's part of them to be successful with you, is to know these different things and to be able to weave those into the work and the practices they have while still maintaining their own authenticity. Because
Mm-hmm.
where I'm wondering is when you shared at the beginning that people think of managing up as kind of maybe icky or manipulative or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it's possible that they don't maybe know or remember that you still have to be you in managing up. We're not asking you to become someone else. I'm just asking you to expand your perspective and your awareness and being able to adapt to what you now know, but to not give up who you are and to have that courage to say, you know, this this aligns with who I am or it doesn't align with who I am. Can we talk about that?
Well, I think it's the reality of life. Like you
Yeah.
can work hard all day, but we've all seen people who do half-assed jobs and get promoted, right? Like so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
relationships matter. So I think it doesn't have to be icky completely, be authentic to yourself, but it is a reality of the workplace. It's a reality of life, like
Yeah.
friend groups, right? Like it's just how people are wired. I know we're about to be out of time, but there's one more point I want to make. Just
Mm-hmm.
reiterate, you brought up assessments. Everyone loves an assessment, right? So if you've done an assessment, go take out your assessment. If your boss has done an assessment, have them take out their assessment
Yep.
and talk about them,
Yes,
right?
please. Yes,
God,
please. Use it. Don't let
don't
it sit in a
do them
drawer.
if you're not going to use them. That is my last point. I'm going to
Yep.
end my piece on, but anything else you want to close out with?
No, I think this is great. This topic is so big and there's so many avenues to it. And I think to anybody listening to start small, maybe find where some of those little corners or little nooks that you keep getting stuck in, maybe your sticking points are, and take one at a time and figure out what could you learn? What could you have a conversation about? What kind of information do you have that could help you look at this in a different way? And
Yeah, and
yeah.
if anyone has any questions specifically about this, let us know. We can
Hmm.
answer those in a future one. But the next time we're going to talk about managing across. So it's a whole
Love it.
different animal,
Oh yeah.
similar but different. Um, so Julie, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Jen. It's great to see you again.